All right, I'd like to thank you for taking a few moments to view this recorded slideshow about evaluation. And what we'll do is we'll first look at what some of the outcomes are of our journey in exploring the evaluation process using the model that has been selected for this course. Of course, there are many models out there, but we've uh, been given a course that's based on one of my favorite models, so I'm not at all worried about using Kirkpatrick's model. But again, know that there's many other models out there, and there's a lot of recent research about this topic. So do use the library and look at some of the published empirical studies coming out related to assessment and evaluation and related issues. So in this journey, we'll look at what an instrument is and how we will create them. We're looking at the concept of summative evaluation, which is very different from formative evaluation, and there's a chance for us to explore and know the process of designing an evaluation, measuring learner satisfaction, which are two different things. Learning is much different than learner satisfaction. Looking at sources for quantitative and qualitative evaluation data and communicating results to your stakeholders. Sorry about the typo there. And then for improving performance. So these are, if you haven't noticed yet, these are the course outcomes. So get a look at the course materials and pay attention to these outcomes as we go through the course, because that's what we're intending to do in our 12-week journey. Now, during the first week, we've kind of shared some thoughts and perceptions, not based on recently published empirical research, but perhaps on stuff that was more opinion-based or just general in nature. But again, the whole idea of serious evaluation work is the notion that you're conducting empirical research. You're collecting data and analyzing that data, and you're using that data to make conclusions. The results of analyzing that data, the conclusions are based on the results of the analysis of the data. Well, customer feedback is important, and it is important, but we must also know that feedback is not always based on empirical data, and systems that do collect feedback often are questionable in terms of the quality of the feedback one is ascertaining, and perhaps the downside of feedback is that it can be very opinion based and not really grounded in supported by data. So again, feedback is important. We want to know how people feel, what people think, what their reactions are. I'm very much interested in user-based technology and usability in terms of learning experiences. So a lot of my research relates to what works in that area, in addition to the visualization stuff that I've done. But again, feedback is important, but know that evaluation is hardly at all concerned with feedback. It's more concerned with an assessment of whether or not objectives and outcomes have been reached, and what things can be changed to make that happen. So a fact can be proven. An opinion is more of a personal feeling or idea or belief. And as a scientist and as a graduate student or a professional with an advanced degree, uh, we're more moving into basing our judgments more on fact than opinion. Experience gives us a lot of reason to throw opinions around, but again, when we look at our model, we're really the reaction or feedback you get from users falls at the bottom of the model, and when you move up to the top of the model, you're really measuring the impact, the return on investment, what has happened in terms of the outcome of this situation that's being evaluated. And in the middle, you're looking at learning. Learning is measured based on what the intended outcomes were and whether or not those outcomes were achieved. In behavior, we usually write our outcomes in a behavioral manner so we can measure behaviors. Things happened or things did not happen. So this is all really the model for research, and we're basically assessing the quality of a product or a learning event or a tool. And so that's what we do in our evaluation. But and often at times there's another component, because we're not only assessing the quality of a product, we're also providing a way to appreciate what the intentions are, and then to have some sort of impact upon the self-assessment and self-understanding of what might be and what could be, as the program could be improved or refocused. So I've worked a lot with doctoral students doing sort of case study research, and we've oftentimes used as our conceptual framework or theoretical framework for these studies this whole notion of appreciative inquiry. And if you're not familiar with it, you can look at some of Patton's work, and there's recently Dr. Patton has published a textbook related to this whole notion, but it's basically a strategic focus of bringing usually the people who are engaged, not the people who are overseeing from the high office a program, the people who are engaged in the activity of the event. Oftentimes in education, it's teachers. Oftentimes in the corporate world, it would be the trainers or the people on the front lines dealing with customers. And using this whole model, it's not to go in and say good, bad, do this, do that. It's more of inspiring people who are involved in the process to know, A, that they are appreciated and respected, and two is that they can be involved in this whole process of discovering what's going on with this program. And it oftentimes can be framed in a way to give these participants a vision for what could be based on what's happening right now, and a voice in the redesign of a program, and then actually a plan to deploy what could be. So it's a never ongoing process, and we're not going to use this model, but I thought I'd bring it up because I think it's an important notion when we do from time to time put on our evaluation cap, that it's not really a judgment thing, when you start looking at it from the concept of appreciative inquiry, we're more so helping people think about what they're doing and becoming more aware that they do have a bigger role or bigger stake in reaching their intended outcomes and the outcomes of a program. So I kind of try to do that in my teaching. Sometimes rubrics and this analysis of products that participants in a course develop is oftentimes biased, so it's hard to judge based on a rubric when oftentimes there's a broader perspective on what quality might be. And the best thing is that we can teach people to do self-assessment and always strive for gaining new skills to become the best they can be under the circumstances. And again, those who are dedicated to the field of evaluation work really are oftentimes inspired by the notion that they can make things better based on empirical findings and science, and not opinion and what makes perhaps people feel good. So again, always walk back to the goals and objectives, because they will lead you to the outcomes, the intended behavioral outcomes of any experience. For instance, this short presentation, I put it together after reading all the discussion posts and the questions and that were posted or emailed to me about the course itself, and trying to just make you think a little bit about what this course is all about and what the intended outcomes are based on the course and why they're important. Because as an instructional designer, formative and summative feedback is something we really have to embrace, but more so when we make judgments about things that occur in our profession and outside of our profession, perhaps our investments of time and energy. We have to measure and record empirical data so we can analyze it and then use that data to judge whether outcomes have been reached, and then look at ourselves and look at those around us in the experience, including the design of the experience, the facilitation of the experience, and our engagement in the experience to judge what needs to be done to improve the quality. So with that, I'd like to thank you all, and looking forward to having some good online discussions in our forums and at our meetings. If you're able to attend, that's great. If you're not able to attend, I usually will have a recording of a presentation, and then I'll do my best to post the Zoom meetings, to record them and post them when possible. But they are not required, but these presentations are required, and I'll expect everyone to view them. I keep them less than 15 minutes. So thank you again for taking the time to view this recording, and also for participating in the first week of our 12-week course.